last but not least speaker, who will present us well-tempered level of privacy, Erich Mendelsohn's thought on dwelling and the interwar. Michele Stavagna, is it a proper pronunciation of your name?
Yeah, it's quite correct.
As I've received an information that you studied architecture at the university in Venice, and you obtained a PhD in history of architecture and urban planning. Your research focuses on the modernist architecture and design in the concept of modern mass society. Michele has taught theory and history of industrial design at the Università degli Studi di Trieste and has given lectures in various European universities and in the USA. Since 2005, he lives and works in Berlin, and he is a correspondent for the magazine Der Architect.
So, thank you for the presentation, and thank you to the organizer for inviting me. So my talk aims to reconstruct Mendelsohn's ideas about dwelling, focusing on some texts and projects of the early 30s. His contribution to the matter was in dialectical conflict with a more politically oriented position by the CM. So the international congresses of modern architecture grew out of the need to promote functional architecture and urbanism. The first meeting took place in 1928 at the Chateau of de la Sarraz, organized by Le Corbusier, Madame de Bandreau, who was the owner of the castle, and the historian Siegfried Gideon. The latter became the first Secretary General of the Congress. Erich Mendelsohn was not present, but only a week later, Gideon visited him. Mendelsohn described in a letter a rather tedious and unfruitful personal meeting. The meaning that Gideon couldn't grasp about Mendelsohn was possibly related to Mendelsohn's position about the statement is in La Sarraz. 1 week before, Mendelsohn had not built in the Weissenhof estate by his own choice. In the early 20s, he had partially realized a small settlement for working people in Luckenwalde. Also, he had designed an estate for a settler on the Mount Carmel in Haifa, never realized. And while showing influence from the current development at the time, the research on the house type was not the core of those projects. But and the same could be argued for the private houses he had designed so far. The interesting element in the plans for House Sternfeld from 27 and from 23 and House Beyach on the 27th, also the same year of the Weissenhof state, is the layout of the open space, because the plan of the domestic space was still somehow conventional. The actual innovation was in the different grades of privacy of the open spaces, set at various height levels. So the architectural experience start outside of the house. In the same July of 1928, Mendelsohn was writing his lecture with slides, Russia, America. Later in 1929, it would become a new editorial success for him after his first photo book, Amerika Bilderbuch eines Architekten. So the text of his conference started with an analysis of the current architectural scene in Russia and America, but it ended in an examination of the development in Europe as a possible mediation between those two opposite poles, America and Russia. Here Mendelsohn addressed one of the best results of the Weissenhof estate, the double house by Le Corbusier and Piaget, and he accused that building of being, in fact, non-rational in its solution. Mendelsohn had gathered his remarks in notes put together for the draft of the lecture. Here the architect expresses the core of his thought. So, I quote, dwelling is always to isolate themselves. Apartment, a perfect commodity, serves the obstacles of everyday life reduced to a minimum. An eternal postulate often fulfilled. Today, for the big city people to apply only with the help of technology. It's not a new problem, only a new form. By the end of July 1928, the project for the Mendelsohn own house am Ruppenhorn was ready and still waiting for the building permit. The design was an attempt to solve the pinpointed question. So while Le Corbusier opened free space under pilotis, Mendelsohn connected it to the living rooms by meaning of retracting windows. Instead of single private rooms, he created independent mini apartments for the people living in this house. So his own was a study room, but equipped with an American folding bed and private bathroom. 2 rooms formed his wife's mini suite. That he had a kitchenette niche, and a shared large bathroom with the adjoining daughter's room. So this, you see here, here there are the entrance hall of Mendelsohn Villa. That's here you see this. Here are the window that can be retracted into the ground, and the terrace became a real expansion of the interior, and that is also underlined with the same treatment of this part of the pavement. This is 2 pictures of the mini suite of Louise Mendelsohn, and this is the detail of the mini kitchenette she has in this point here. Also, the project embodies a dwelling ideal that is full of advanced technical solutions in service of a new lifestyle. So, different societal models could and should share the same city. This thought is leading the sole text published by Mendelsohn that address the issue of modern dwelling. Gruppe Nummer 1, Gruppe Nummer 2. It outlines 2 approaches towards modernity. One cosmopolitan, open to the world. One conservative, locked up as in a secluded world. It associates each with an ideal model of dwelling. The text appeared in Haushofgarten, the weekly supplement of the newspaper Berliner Tageblatt. This small magazine was usually devoted to domestic economy. 2 weeks later, it published also a contribution by Walter Gropius. At that time, the weekly supplement was in fact acting as an official guide for a special exhibition. The show, called So wohne alle Tage, and shortened as SOVO, ran in Berlin at the same time of the German Building Exhibition 1931. The sponsor was the same Mosse publishing house. Modern furniture stands filled the Deutschland House, an office building near the Berlin Fairgrounds. The show aimed, I quote, to inform the citizens about the state of the art, about the new dwelling and architectural culture within a framework that is adequate to the citizen's general economic condition. End quote. The support to the modernist solution was open but critical, refusing 2 ideological solutions. An introductory stand hosted a mockery of a cold functionalist room. A couple of weeks A couple of weeks after his text appeared on the magazine, Mendelsohn participated to the Special CM Congress in Berlin. The stenographic transcript gives an important information. Mendelsohn spoke at the meetings of the German chapter of the CM, so the meeting that prepared this special congress that was also a preparation for the congress that was planned for Moscow in 1933 that then never happened. The text group Nummer 1, Gruppe Nummer 2 could be a reworking of a speech he might have held there, so at the meeting of the German chapter, not at this special congress. Thus, the described architectural solution could depict actual project presented by Mendelsohn. The living cell he described in this text, we will see then an abstract. The living cell may only refer to an apartment house. By the end of 1931, Mendelsohn had completed a new building phase on the Voga estate. The central part of the area of the Kurfürstendamm had stayed longer empty for lack of financing. This put then in motion the redesign of the planned hotel into an apartment hotel. So we're referring to this part. An added proposal for minimum apartment house were planned also to exploit the residual part of the free area. The magazine Bauwelt in November 1931 only showed the realized apartment house, but show also a hint of the other project, that is this. Yet, this project has been already published in February 1931 in a volume on the most recent architectural solution on dwelling, that is Neuzeitliche Mietshäuser und Siedlungen by Leo Adler. Mendelsohn's design was for apartment houses with a cruciform plan that he called Kreuzhäuser. The general arrangement that the wall area would have taken borrows suggestion from the Corbusier scheme to fill in the area. The layout is consistent with the description in Gruppe Nummer 1, Gruppe Nummer 2. So 5 levels, central heating, 3 stairwells with lift and light wells in the core. Each stair serves 8 mini one-room apartments. These are equipped with kitchenette and closet niches, bathroom with natural ventilation, and a bed niche in the living room. Half of the apartments had even a balcony to differentiate the rent. Another important plan feature was a longitudinal offsetting section due to the development of the stairs. The implied lifestyle should have been plenty of social interaction, work, sport, entertainment, rather than household chores and stays at home. In April 1931, an article boosted these new American forms of dwelling as a vector of a modern and mobile society. I quote one of the key phrases from the article. The most complete use of the space and the extensive independence from furniture that is otherwise carried with you is a key advantage, as these give tenants the opportunity to quickly adapt to changes in their financial situation, which is very important in terms of social policy. The persistent economic crisis sank this project for the Kreuzhäuser. After gaining the building permit anyway, in January 1934, the project was abandoned in April 1932 and replaced by 4 tennis courts. This consolidated the shared social use planned for the inner core of the Voga originally. Thus, it achieved a more balanced equilibrium between built volumes and free area. The opposite model identified in group number 1 and group number 2 was a traditional modernized family house as counterpart to the dwelling to to the dwelling cell of the new objectivity. By 1931, it was possibly only a work in progress for Mendelsohn. Yet Mendelsohn realized two house prototypes at the Summer Show 1932. This is a unique, same design were applied to two alternative construction systems, one in steel skeleton and one in concrete slabs, concrete panels. The Berlin planning director Martin Wagner had developed the concept of the growing house that was not a new thing. It was already in 1930 and 1931. There was a really big speaking about it. He had developed the concept of the growing house as an urban design tool. The idea was to remodel the free settlements of unemployed people built by the inhabitants themselves. The prototype should be a detached small house, technically advanced and with a fixed basic cost of 2,500 Reichsmark. The possibility of transformation and successive expansion was the first rule. We see those two were the two houses built by Mendelsohn. The prototypes of the growing house were the last. Mendelssohn's solution matches the model for the conservative citizen in group number 1, group number 2. A house, quote, a house more spacious than the unsound living box, but organized so that the service can be kept to a minimum in closest connection with the vegetable garden that expands its living space, quiet, sunny, and so healthy that the bath trips are not necessary. So a home for an impoverished but cultivated middle class, open to improvement and aspiring to coziness and comfort at home. The mediation between inside and inside of the house, between nature and man, became thus accessible to everyone. This was coherent with an idea of slow broadening of new ideals of modern dwelling in the vast society. And it was the opposite of a forced ideological functionalism which was prevalent in the German chapter of CCM and aiming to a complete societal change. The prototype of the growing house were the last buildings that actually Mendelsohn realized in Germany. They were dismantled after the end of the show. After his forced emigration, but in a brief period in Holland, in 1934 he settled in the United Kingdom. But he wasn't able to fit in the British environment despite newfound professional success. His new partner, Chermayeff, was already a member of the Mars Group, which had become the English chapter of the CIM. He, Mendelsohn, could not get the membership. Other members challenged his unorthodox position towards functionalism and refused his joining. Among the projects that he designed in partnership emerged the plan for White City, a former exhibition ground in West London. Two schemes were proposed. One for private capital investors retained a mixed use. The second one foresaw sole real estate plus social facilities aiming to support from a public authority. A detailed economic study substantiated the proposals with figures. The interior disposition of the buildings is not known in detail. High-rise residential towers for two-room apartments mark the ideal spine of the whole estate. In some sketches, Mendelsohn defined them as Ledigenheim, that is, bachelor's house. Other layout elements resemble previous projects in Germany, like the urban design for the Lindenstrasse, where then he built also the German Metal Workers Union, and a proposed estate right behind the youth center, the Jewish Youth Center in Essen, that both these part of a project were not realized. Yeah, also, with a sporting facility equally distributed, we see the tennis court all over the place. So with a sporting facility equally distributed in a commercial and recreative area that was here, this solution experimented in the Voga estate achieved here a town planning scale. The architects defined it I quote, a comprehensive example of social service in planning and construction, a self-contained new city which can be developed ideally for dwellings of the artisan type rather than adding to the mass of speculative buildings for the lower middle class. Such a plan needed a centralized control, according to the architects, over the whole area with a mass production basis for construction. The project never found either private or public investor. In the second half of 1935, Mendelsohn had already established a new practice in Jerusalem. He dissolved his British partnership by the end of 1936. The White City plan left no trace outside few historic narratives. Yet what stayed behind was the concept of balancing the seek for privacy as personal commodity and the need for social interaction. That was the basis for a successful planning designed for people. His former partner, Shamayev, would later become one influential theorist on this matter. I have some final remarks that I just put out yesterday after the previous day we have visited Chaim Weizmann house, and was the first time for me to visit it because I hadn't had this opportunity before. And so I put together these two pictures because I wasn't sure. I had just a hunch before, because I hadn't visited the building, the Villa Weizmann. But really, I guess that one of the things that we could say in the project, in the realization by Mendelsohn, is that there is that for around a very core thematics that could be so the idea of dwelling, or the idea of a factory. There is, so I think that he is really able to go to the core of it, and then for different occasions and projects, and simply to rework it like Benedict says, so a renewal of it, but every time he is faithful to his core belief, and is just able to go from the small to the large scale, or to the largest. That's all, and I thank you for the attention.